Saints and names.
What it do?
How you doing?
How y'all feel?
May the Lord bless and keep you. That's more a doxology than a welcome. Even though a doxology technically like couples as a welcome.
I like what it do.
What it do. I just talked about code switching earlier.
I don't code switch.
So you do. But it's
sometimes.
Okay. We all do. Hey, Melissa. Hey, Damon.
I know. Hi, my name is Preston Perry.
Hey, Kelsey. Hey, Carabo. Hey, Nancy.
I'm not
hey,
threatening.
Michelle. Hey, the Jazz Account. Hey, Bree. Hey, Jennifer. Hey, Kai. Hey, Kelsey. Hey, Brandy. Hey, Anna. Hey, Miracle Stone. That's an interesting name. Hey, Adriana. Hey, Z Kelly. Hey, Eunice. Who else we got? Whole bunch of people. Hey, Precious. Hey, Jordan. Hey, Joanna. Hey, Jennifer. Hey, Ray. Hey, Michaela. Hey, Sierra. Hey, Faithful. I'm not gonna, yeah. Hey, Amen. Hey, Sarah. Hey, SD Weeks. Hey, M Doctor. Hey, Sarah T. I'm out of breath.
All y'all.
You said that's all I got. Have my locks falling apart?
Uh-oh.
What's going on, Jesus? Oh. It's because we're talking about singleness.
Old age?
I'm getting demonically attacked on my hair.
What is this?
That's what that is.
What's happening?
We finna edify the saints, and the devil's
Look
like,
at this.
let me get your hair, though.
Look at the hair.
Anyway. How was your day today?
Long.
Yes.
Very long.
We ain't looked at the camera one time. Hey, camera.
Hey, y'all.
We apologize.
Very long.
Why?
I don't know, man. I feel like Sage was just on her level last night. Or was I?
No, she woke up twice.
Really?
Yes.
So I dreamt that?
Yes.
That's crazy. Well, she cried so much. I mean,
No, I woke up. I was like, wow, she didn't even wake up. But we appreciate y'all joining us for this second, session of the top. Well, it's not the second Teach the Text, but it's the second session related to relationships. Yeah. You want to recap the people on what we talked about last week?
So last week we talked about the theology of relationships, and so why relationships even matter in the first place. And some of you may remember we talked about how we are a relational people because God is a relational God. And we talked about the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit's relationship with one another, and how when God made us in his image and after his likeness, he also created us to be relational beings, and how sin and depravity came and jacked that all up. But Jesus' aim and mission is to come and restore us, not just to himself, but to each other in right relationship.
Come on here with the cliff notes.
You know what I'm saying?
Preston Cliff notes.
I do what I can do when I can do it.
You did do that.
You know what I'm saying?
So today, how long have we been talking? 2 minutes, 58 seconds. Today, we want to talk about the grief and the good of singleness. We think talking about singleness is a really important conversation, seeing as though a good majority of the church is single. But I also think that singles have a lot of value to add, a lot of good perspectives to add, especially when you consider the fact that we all will be single in heaven. And so there's a real sense in which single people actually have to wrestle through and enjoy the contentment and with being with Jesus that we all will enjoy one day in heaven without an actual tangible spouse other than Jesus himself. So Amen. For that reason, we brought a guest because the saints, I read people's posts, I pay attention to people's comments. And one thing that people will always say is, why are people having singles panels with married people on it?
Yeah, like we were single at one point, but
we were. And so it's not as if we don't have any value to add.
We were single more in our life than we were married, but
yes. But people be wanting to talk to single people that are single now.
Right. I feel you.
In 2021, in a pandemic, in a panorama. They're like, how you single in a
whole panorama,
in a polyurethane? How is that happening? What do you do? How do you trust God when anxiety and loneliness?
You like them old saints always getting words wrong. My daddy.
How do they love God while they single during the Pokemon?
My daddy, when the pandemic first happened, he was like, "How long you think we're gonna be in this demic?"
He took the
You just forgot about the whole pan. How you gonna leave the pan out? How long you think we're gonna be in this demic? Like what? Boy, you was old.
It's actually really funny. And so our guest today, if you read my book, you've seen me, you read about her, Santoria Bell, the woman that discipled me, who is also my friend. She lives in, what's that, Lansing. If you don't know where Lansing is, just think Detroit and just go
But
outside.
it's not
of it,
important.
That's mean.
The place. I mean, she's important. She's a beautiful woman of God. But where
does
she
anything
lives,
good kind of come out of what was it?
Galilee?
Yeah.
No. Oh, it did, but not Lansing, Michigan. It's nothing but cold and Walgreens.
Anywho, Santoria, I think can really offer. Like I think y'all are going to enjoy her. So I'm gonna bring on everybody. Do some emoji claps for San. Emoji claps. Let me bring her in. Hey, Santoria.
Hola.
How you doing? So tell us what's good about Lansing.
It's the capital city of Michigan.
Okay, that's good.
Magic is from here.
Okay.
And Malcolm X lived here.
Wow. Man.
Yeah.
All the capital cities, that's where all the kids go for field trips. So that's really cool.
That's what I'm saying. Trying to disrespect me, Preston. I heard you.
I love you, Sam.
Uh-huh.
So tell the people about yourself. Who are you?
Well, oh wow, okay. My name is Santoria. For those of you that don't know, where should I be looking? Just so I know. Like, am I looking at y'all like this, or am I looking at me? Right.
You can look at you.
You can look at you.
Oh yeah, okay, that feels better. So like she said, I'm from Lansing, Michigan. Jackie and I connected because I was a part of the ministry some years ago. I was the women's leader there. Discipleship was really heavy. And so Jackie was actually one of the people I discipled. She lived with me for 2 years. Like she said, if you read the book, you kind of know a little bit about me. Even though that was a large part of my life, I've kind of done a lot of stuff. Like I worked in television for many years. I actually left television and ended up helping start a church. And that's where I met Jackie. I left that, went back to corporate America, worked at the Cheesecake Factory. I've been all over. And now it's like I'm headed back toward television, film, and potentially Atlanta. So yeah, that's that.
Look at the Lord. And so let's just jump straight into it.
Yes.
Have you ever been married? Like when you singleness can imply divorced,
that's
been
true.
married, or widowed. What is your context?
That's good. I've never been married. I'm single, no kids. I'm 45. And now I know people are gasping, so I'll give you a moment.
Look, 30.
Thank you. Preston, you trying to win me back, boy. But yeah, I've never been married. And so say it again.
Black don't crack.
Right, exactly. And so, man, this is actually a very timely topic because at 45, single with no kids, right? Everybody's like, so do you not want to get married? I'm like, sure I do, but not to the wrong person, you know? And so I had a number of relationships that if I'd have gotten married to these people, I don't know that I would still be married. And so I definitely wanted to do it one time, do it well, do it right, and stay there. Yeah. And so I most certainly get that question all the time. People ask me about kids. Do you want kids? People have asked me, do I want to freeze my eggs? It's like, wow. I mean, maybe, but it's like, I would like to get married first, and then maybe I'll consider what position I'm in then. So yeah, it's a very interesting place, especially in the church, because I think that marriage has been made such an idol.
Yeah.
So it's almost as if you're not married, especially at my age. It's like, well, what have you been doing? I'm like, well, I just said I helped start a church. I worked in television. I went and worked in corporate America. Like I've done a lot, actually. And so it's unfortunate that oftentimes you have to justify your singleness to Christian people who know that we are actually brought into the faith to be reconciled to the Lord, not to a person. So, yeah. Yeah.
Do you think that because I think when people ask those questions, I know not to ask those questions because, again, all of my close friends are single. And so I'm never one to say, why aren't you married yet? Are you dating? or even, how some people, when people get married, why y'all ain't had a baby, not knowing that people got all kinds of
right.
But I think those questions are well-meaning. But why do you think people ask them? Do you think there's this confusion, like you must have done something wrong to still be single? Or
so in the well-meaning part, right? I think part of it is if people meet you and they think, man, you're a nice person, or you're attractive, or you're accomplished, like who wouldn't have swooped you up? So you kind of get that, you're like, okay, you see me as someone worthy of partnership with someone. So I get that.
Wow.
But I also think that, again, there's just been such an unhealthy focus on that being a major goal. I think that, that could be a goal of someone's, definitely. But it being a prominent goal, I think that's the unhealthy part. And I think it's become that. And so that's when it starts to kind of cross over into this perverse conversation where you are now defending your singleness, instead of it being like, it would even be cool if somebody's like, man, you're like a great person. Are you dating? Are you just not open to marriage right now? Like, even if they kind of left it open, but they do kind of pose the question in this like condemning way that insinuates, like, why aren't you married? Like, girl, what you doing? Like, living my life. So
For somebody who's been single for a while, right, and who hasn't been married, like, is it ever a time in which you just get tired of people talking to you about marriage and singleness, like, as a whole? Like, and the second part to my question is, what does married people, what does like coming to you about your singleness and you getting married look like in a good way, healthy way? What does that look like for people who care about people's genuine concern? Like as a single woman, how do you want people to approach you about it? If that makes sense.
Well, in all honesty, I think I would feel a little better if they didn't say much about it. Unless only because, again, that makes it this standout thing. Like, nobody's asking me, what's it like living in Lansing? Right? Like, every time they see that I live in Lansing, or like, I don't know, random things. So how does it feel every day walking around with dreadlocks? Right? It's like the question in and of itself, like asking the question poses the problem. And so you're like, man, of all the things you could have said, like I read this article where this girl who was single, she's like 37 or whatever, and she was saying she overheard someone asking about her to her mother. And they were just like, oh, how's Sarah doing? Is she married yet? And the mom was like, nope. And they're like, man, what's she waiting on? She was like, my daughter actually has an amazing life. And she ran down all the things that her daughter was able to do in her singleness. And the daughter, she overheard it, right? And she said it gave her so much joy for her mom to know that her life was actually really full, even though she wasn't married. And so she flipped that thing. And so I know that whoever asked that question, they're going to second guess approaching somebody like that again. And so I think, and if you do ask, so if you or Jackie were to come to me, obviously, because we're friends, it's not a huge deal at all, because I know there's a certain level of love and care. They're like, hey, Sam, you want me to pray? You've been praying about a husband. I'm about to pray for you, a husband, or something like that. I just laugh. I'll be like, cool,
That's really good, because what I hear is, when the relationship is not even that established, don't try to make small talk with single people about their singleness.
Olivia, she said it can make you feel like singleness overshadows your identity. I'm sorry. Yeah, no, I don't.
Yeah, because it's like I hated that even when I was a young Christian dude. It's like, you don't even know me and you don't know what to say. So the first thing is, you're gonna get married. What's wrong with you? It's just like, find out him first.
That's what I was gonna say too, Preston. I feel like sometimes people don't know what to say. So there's almost like, instead of just sitting in it and like letting it be an awkward silence, or waiting to speak when you actually have something of value to say, they just go to these standard. It's like, what do you do for a living? Oh, where do you live? Where's your family from? It's like, dude, you don't really care. Like, come on, man. We can just sit here and be quiet. It's cool, you know?
I think one interesting thing is, I think what Olivia said and what others have said is that I think relationships in general, romantic relationships in particular, are like we really get a real strong sense of identity out of them in our culture. And I think a lot of our exaltation of romantic relationships starts young. You know what I'm saying?
Yes,
Every Disney
yes,
movie is about
yes,
somebody finding a person, you know.
yes,
Like, we
yes.
grow up already like being trained to believe that our life is not complete until we have a spouse. And
Ooh.
so I think I guess what I'm saying is I think sometimes the question comes out of people not seeing single people as whole people,
Yeah,
even without a spouse.
yeah.
You
But
know?
look what
Or
I just thought about. Oh, go ahead, Preston.
I was just gonna say quickly, it's probably because they don't see themselves whole without a spouse.
Right.
A
Yeah,
lot of
for
people.
sure.
Yeah.
And as Jackie was talking, I'm like, man, what a trick of the enemy, right? So he starts planting that seed as kids. It's in all these Disney movies. So
Yeah.
we're already being primed to think that we are not whole, even outside of the church,
Yeah.
without a spouse. So it's already that thing is already brewing in us. And I guess so maybe the response of the church or even the individual is to know that, you know, and to respond to that in the sense of just recognizing that our wholeness isn't found in that. Like you said before you guys introduced me, Jackie, like in heaven, we're not going to be married. We're going to straight up, we're going to all be one. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? But we'll be single. It's not like you're going to be up there like, this me and my husband's mansion. That's, you know,
Yeah.
that's Anna and her husband's mansion. It's not going to be like that.
Yeah.
So I think, I think it's a trick of the enemy because ultimately I do think that marriage and the idolatry of it is just another thing that Satan uses, one of the cares of this life that's used to try to choke out the seed of belief. That's
Hmm.
it. It's another distraction. It's just like ambition. It's just like money. It's just like lust. It's just
Hmm.
whatever. That's just another thing. And I think it's effective because we were built for community, right? So we're already craving it, but we just have to like align ourselves with what God has called us to in terms of community and not pervert it, you know.
I'm wondering because I like when me and you talk about relationships and things like that. I think so much of your perspective, I believe, is a matured perspective, but that doesn't mean that you've always thought the way that you thought
Mm-hmm.
about relationships, about singleness, and the like. And so, like, if you could think about what you thought about romantic relationships before Jesus and what you
Mm-hmm.
think about them now, what do you think your
Oh.
relationship God actually did for how you view relationships?
Woo, it was terrible. First of all, I'm an extremist very naturally. And so I'm like, I'm either all in or not, you know? And so I think as it related to relationships, I was extremely cautious because I had seen a lot of bad relationships. So I was just like, I'm not dying to get up in that, you know? So I always, if I'm honest, I've always been a little bit reserved as it relates to getting into a relationship and cautious. But I was also pretty like, I guess the word to be I was probably pretty dominant and abusive. Like
Mm,
I wanted this dude to prove to me that he was going to be worth me really giving him my heart. Because the reality is, I'm really soft.
mm,
Inside. I'm a very soft person. Like once I love you, I do, you know. And
mm,
so I'm like, you need to prove over and over and over again. And I don't know what that threshold was going to be. It was
yeah,
horrible that you will be worth me giving you my heart. And then when you do, you'll love it. I promise. Like that was kind of the idea I had. So really growing in my relationship with the Lord showed me that, you know, showed me the extreme I had run to. So I was
mm,
probably the epitome of like, you know, the independent Black woman. Like, I don't need no man. I'm good, you know. But in my heart, I really do long for companionship. In my heart, I really do long for a relationship. I'm actually more of a community minded person. I'm actually very, I'm high probably on the I don't know, if you look at the scale of someone that would be married, it's like, yes, and you actually love working with a team. You,
yeah,
so, but I had to like kind of sort through really all the damage and just trauma I'd endured as a child, things I'd observed that helped shape my perspective. So there's that part of it. But then there was like, okay, when I came to the place where I was like, okay, I would like a relationship. Now the vulnerability of, but I don't have one. So is there something I did wrong, or is there something I need to change? And one thing I would love to encourage you and Jackie, Preston, especially you, to be honest, my married friends, I've managed to form really great bonds with the husbands just because, and they have spoken into my life in ways that I could never fully express. It's
Mhm.
been amazing. Like, so many of my friends' husbands have let me know that I was okay. You know what I'm saying? And we came out of the church that Jackie and I actually attended for a while, was pretty traumatizing and damaging to me ultimately. And and one of the things that that pastor tried to do was basically tell me I would never be married. He's like, no one will ever marry you. He berated and demeaned me really
And
bad. Go ahead.
in what way? In what way did the husbands make you feel like you were okay?
Well, so one of my really, really good friends, husbands, his name is Omar. I would talk to him about like dating and relationships. I would pick his brain, like, man, am I too this? Like, am I too forward, or am I too loud, or is there anything about me that should change? And he was like, absolutely not. And then he would tell me all the qualities he saw that made me valuable as a wife. And he
Wow.
was married to my friend. You know
That's
what I mean? And I was just like, oh my gosh, like every time it was the exact opposite. And then he would open it up further and break down game that guys would feed me. Like, he's like saying, no, we will gaslight you. We will be insecure about something and turn it on you and make you think it's your fault. Like, I mean, we would have conversations for hours
that's
where he
good.
was like, it's not you. And I remember one of the last conversations we had, because my pastor had just broke me so far. He said, don't you change. You better not make me come out there. And I was like, okay. I really believed him. But
Good.
yeah, he just really, and even in casual ways, and I think as my heart has been open to the value that men bring to the table. So once I got taken from this independent Black woman to like, no, man, we were all built to be in community together. Like, there's things that we all bring to the table that are amazing. My heart was just so open to however the Lord would use whoever to pour into me. Even small things like Preston, you said, I think one of not the last time I came, but the time before that when I came to visit, you was like, Sam, you lost weight. You look good. Like, dude, it was like, but you said it and you walked away, you went upstairs like you do or whatever.
I mean, yeah, like I knew you was doing some kind of like diet regimen. I was like, man, I mean, you always look pretty. I'm like, okay.
But I think what she's saying is good yet interesting and maybe mildly complicated. Just because I've read about how, in churches in particular, there seems to be, we talked about this early, different islands for different contexts.
That's what I was
so
saying.
all the hang out, all
Yeah.
the single people in the church hang out, and what's happening is we actually don't get the chance to be edified with each other.
That's what I was about to ask you next. Because I know God has called us to be a community, and I know in a lot of ways single people can learn from married people. But because we sometimes married people, we can be so consumed about our marriage working, our marriage being healthy. The first thing we do is gravitate towards other married couples to go from, because we can relate to. And it's like, man, and I remember when my friend Joe moved to Chicago. A lot of people know him, Joseph Solomon, moved to Chicago. And one of the things that he communicated to me was, I love how he loved coming to me and Jackie's house. And I asked him why. And he was saying, one of the reasons why is because he's like, y'all like are one of the first married couples while I'm friends with y'all both. And so it doesn't seem like I have to like work to like be your friend, and if I'm not your friend. And then he was talking about how he went to people's house that was married. He felt like one spouse wanted me there, but the other spouse was like, okay, I wish you go home so I can spend time with my husband or my wife. And so I guess my question is, I mean, we all were single at one point, but in what way can married people, I guess, not learn from, but to serve single
Mm.
people well, um,
Mm.
in their singleness? How can we come alongside you? Don't make it feel awkward. Like,
Yeah.
what do you look for in married couples? When you even like when you like both parties. I mean, how can we
Yeah.
serve married single people better as married couples?
Yeah. I mean, I think just by, man, praying, first of all, praying for singles, like, period. Maybe even praying for singles, not just your friends, but in your local body. You know what I mean? Praying for the Lord to bring the singles into you and Jackie's lives that the Lord wants there, that'll benefit from you guys, that both of you will be able to befriend and pour into. And then, when they come around, um, opening yourselves up to both having a relationship with this person. You know what I'm saying? And ultimately, like, if it's a female, there may be things that Jackie and the girl run off and get into that you're like, I ain't trying to do that because I'm watching the game, or just like if it's a guy, same with you and him. But just keeping it open. And honestly, I think you and Jackie do it really well and very naturally. So maybe even part of the answer is y'all thinking through how you've been able to do that, and continuing to be intentional about it.
Mhm.
Um, and then I've been really fortunate. I think that I have like quite a few married couple friends where I'm just really close to both of them. Like, I like going back to my friend Omar and Latoya. There's this joke. I went over to kick it. Me and Latoya were gonna do like a pamper night, and I went over there. We had like little face masks and these little booties to put our feet in. All this stuff. Gonna watch movies um and so Omar was kicking it with us for a minute, and then we were like, all right, we're about to watch the movie, and he was like, oh, what we watching? And we both looked at him. He was like, oh, I'm not watching.
Oh,
She
let
was
me say,
like, oh, go ahead.
what I was going to say was, I think what makes it, when I said it's complicated, I think what makes it complicated is that there is a real dynamic in which you can't trust all single people around your marriage.
That's true.
And so I think for you, I think you're unique
I was
because
gonna say that.
you're godly.
Yeah.
And
But not only
you
godly,
have
she
integrity.
she like a homie too.
Yeah.
She is, but there's some women that act like a homie to slip in, and so I think
That's
That's
true.
true.
I think some marriages don't welcome in single people either because there is a discernment about a single person or an insecurity about a single person. And so I think that's one thing that married people have to work through is, am I not allowing single people, like, are we not welcoming single people into our space because we're discerning something and saying, oh, you probably need to go on over there, or because they're secure and we're afraid that our husbands or our wives might get pulled towards this person in particular. Does that make sense?
Yeah, because I think there is a wisdom. I'm not gonna just start bringing every dude around my wife in my home,
Right.
and still I get to know them. You know what I'm saying? I don't think that like single people should be going like with the opposite sex with married people. Like I don't. I that's a wisdom thing.
Yeah.
But I do think that if both parties feel comfortable with an individual, bringing them, hanging out with them together, and doing their best not to make them feel weird,
Right.
You know what I mean?
That's probably the most valuable piece. And remember, at the top of it, I said, and pray for the Lord to bring the people that He wants you to minister to. So that way you are safeguarding yourself. Because I realized that, like, even going back to my friend Omar, his wife who actually is the friend I met in college. Her name is Latoya. She said, and I know this was a God thing. The way He invested in me, she said, I could tell that the Lord was doing something between you and him, and I needed to support it. That's huge, right? And that also meant, though, that she had to really trust me too, to not be on nothing crazy. But she saw that. So there's certainly a discerning factor, because sadly, women, don't get me on that. I just think it's trifling for women to hit on men that are taken. Period. It's disrespectful. And y'all don't do it if I'm with them and somebody hit on Preston, because I'm not going to handle this graciously, Jack. I think it's horrible.
Did you, when you became a Christian, did you have a timeline about when you were getting married? If so, how did you deal with any bitterness or any distrust towards the Lord in light of your timeline not actually coming to pass?
Whoopsie. That's good. So I didn't have an actual timeline, but this is something that the Lord threw up at me when I was complaining about how long it was taking.
Mm-hmm.
So when I first moved to LA, I was like 22, but the Lord had really been like on me hard to like just stop my foolish ways and really live for him, right? So he was like inserting himself in all kind of random ways. Y'all, like, I met this guy who was 100% my type. We kicked it. He drops me off at home. You know, he comes around, walks me to the door, and it's like perfect kiss moment, right? This dude comes for me and my head turns. But on everything to this day, I swear I didn't turn my head. I'm like, Jesus, you're cockblocked. Like, what just happened? He was like, oh. So he came in again. My head turned again. I'm like, no, Jesus, he's so fine. I'm just gonna kiss him. But he didn't let me do it. So once I saw that, and there's a number of stories like that, I saw that God was serious about me, like being serious about him. I just prayed. I said, okay, fine, Lord. If you don't let nobody step to me unless it's the one. Just keep them all away from me, or let me realize quickly that they're not the one and just move on. I don't want to waste my time. I'm not trying to go through this. Mm-hmm. But I didn't know at 22 I was gonna be 45. Like, what?
So yeah, we prayed that prayer thinking he was gonna do it in
I should have kissed him, Lord. I should have kissed him. I should have kissed him.
I thought that was hooking me up. I thought it was gonna make it move quicker. Like, all right, I'm not gonna do nothing good, so you can go on and send them. And
okay, Lord, you didn't want me to kiss him. That means I'm gonna get married in 3 years.
Man,
which is the promise of purity culture.
Yeah.
Is that somehow your restraint or your purity
Speak
will
on it.
God will like bless you.
That's excellent.
You pure.
Oof.
But go ahead.
Where's that in the Bible?
Nowhere.
And that's exactly it.
He said, Santoria, you good. I would have been licking his face. Y'all are nuts.
Whoa, wait a minute. Who said that? Ashanti.
No, that's hilarious.
Come
that
on.
Is hilarious. Listen,
come on, Ashanti.
Be real. No, if y'all saw what he looked like, she didn't lie. That was
licking his face. Licking his face.
That was Jesus himself. And I was like,
y'all crazy.
That's how I knew it wasn't me. Because I'm like, this dude. And his name was Rollo. That is not.
He sound like he got a thick neck.
He sound like he went Tim's and Pelly jeans.
Yes.
Oh, thick neck Rollo.
He ain't had no thick neck though, Jack. You stop.
He changed tires real quick.
Hey man, Rollo can change your transmission.
Right. He probably could have. But yeah. But man, that's an excellent point in terms of like name it, claim it. Like I think really the point, well, there's a number of them, but kind of the underlying point is that the Lord really, he died, he rose to reconcile us to himself. Mm-hmm. Period. Anything else is a potential distraction away from that. And so I think that the more we pursue him, whatever it is he has for us, he, like me and my friends make a joke, like, he know Jesus know where I live. Mm-hmm. He know how to send whoever it is right to my door. Like, you know what I'm saying? And so I think that like we as singles, unfortunately, we have to fight against the tide too, with regard to that burden or that yoke that the church could be putting on us. That's just not healthy. You know what I'm saying? I said this in a previous discussion with Jackie and I'm like, man, if I were married, there's no way she could have lived with me for 2 years. Yeah. And I disciple her the way that I did. And it wasn't just her. I had like a constant flow of people in and out of my house for years, for about probably 5 or 6 years. There's no way. And how much more valuable could my time have been spent? Like, so even with just Jackie alone, let's just say Jackie, right? That's the only person I worked with in my singleness. All these people she touching because I could devote myself to the Lord for 2 years, pour into this girl for her to go touch millions. I ain't do nothing else. I'm not gonna stand before the Lord for doing that. You know what I'm saying? And so I think it's really the flip. I remember this guy, we were at this like purity event when I was like 14, 15 or whatever. And he was like, yeah, there's like everybody's having sex, but don't feel pressure to have sex, blah, blah, blah. He's like, I told my daughter, if people come up to you and be like, you haven't had sex? He said, I told her to respond like, you have? Because it's really a matter of perspective, right? So if somebody comes at me and they're like, you're not married, be like, you are? Flip that thing on them and then lay out why I think singleness has been amazing for me. I was like, man, Lord, it's so good that you've had time to shift my perspective, because if I would have gotten married, I think a couple things, I just would have been learning a lot with my husband, and that poor man would have been beat down. I'm sure of it. That's one. Two, I think I would have tried to fit a mold of wife that I don't think God has called me to. I think he's actually called me to be like who I am in all her glory, loud, silly, whatever. And so there's someone that he will have for me that can come alongside that and see that it's a good thing, like Jackie did with Preston. So, and I would have most certainly tried to fit into a mold that I now see very clearly. The Lord is like, no, I never called you to that. You are so much more effective this way.
Wow.
So yeah,
that's good.
I have a ton of questions, but if you have one,
you could ask.
I will, because it's always so many bullet points. You can't add things. So with that, okay, you said you're 45.
Mm-hmm.
You're not married.
Mm-hmm.
How do you keep yourself from smashing people, because you just don't know? Because I can imagine, we got married at 24, right? But I can imagine if at this point I'm 31, if I was still single, I would start to be like, okay, so am I ever gonna do it? Like, am I ever gonna have active worship? Is that a thing? And I would think that the temptation towards fornication, masturbation, and pornography, and even just entertaining people, would be so much more stronger than it was when I was 19. So can you encourage the saints with that?
Yeah, get in your word. Be transformed by the renewing of your mind. I am not lying. If I'm not in my word, that is when I can tell I am like fighting with the demon all day, every day. But if I'm in my word, and so my perspective is God's perspective, the Bible says godliness with contentment is great gain. You gain peace, you gain joy, you gain, self-control, you gain all the fruit of his spirit when you are in that word, for real, for real. But if I'm not, it's a wrap, and don't fill yourself up either. Like, learn yourself, right? Take this time as a single to really learn yourself. My whole thing is, whoever my husband is to come, he gonna get a bomb version of me, because I've been doing work, baby. I'm like, now that don't mean I ain't gonna be jacking him up periodically. He ain't gonna jack me up. However, I do hope that the learning curve will have shortened because of the work that I'm currently doing. So, stay in your word. That's really it. Like, the Bible calls the word a sword. It's a light. It's a lamp. But esteem all of that as true and get in that word. That really is, like, I feel like my greatest safe haven, because when I'm abstaining or I'm saying no, even when I'm tempted, but when I'm in my word like I should be, I feel good about that choice.
Wow. That's significant.
Because my mind is stayed on him, right? But if I'm not getting my mind renewed in there, then I'm all over the place, and his truth is further and further away from me. And the voices in my head are louder, and the voices of the pulpit, if they wrong, are louder, and everybody else questioning me about, you know what I'm saying? And so, that was get in that word and hang on to it for dear life.
My God.
That's good.
I heard you smack your mouth.
No, I was going to ask, in I don't want to say the many years that you. I don't want to say that, because it's not like you're not
in the
not,
many
in
decades.
The many,
You've been single.
I'm no longer sensitive. Jackie was calling me old, especially when she was 18. She'd be like, because you old. I would be like, Jackie, I'm not that old.
Yeah.
Close to
Man, you was like in your late teens when, like, a different world was like coming on live.
No, she was in college, probably.
She was in college.
No, you weren't.
No, I was not.
You were in high school. She said, "Oh, I'm gonna go to Howard." Because Santoria is a Howard alumni. If you don't know,
you know.
FYI.
All I'm saying is you seen your good amount of presidents coming in and out of office.
Shut up. You was born.
Listen, I'll come back. I'm be pitching sage for everything y'all did today.
Go ahead, ask your question. Oh, Adam got the question. We can joke because she's like our friend and stuff. So, what I was gonna ask is, in the years that you've been single, how has you running to the Word and running to the Lord sustain you in your longing for intimacy with another person?
That's good. That's like, because what you're saying is some people, it's not even about lust, it's just about companionship. Somebody in your bed that you could like cuddle.
So what I'm not trying to communicate is because I don't want some people out there, Jesus is my boyfriend, Jesus is my thing that Jesus is a father. I mean, God is a father, and a king. But I'm saying like in your, because I'm pretty sure like God throughout the years has comforted you in that need and in that want. And that's so good. Like, how has that sustained you, and how has that continue to sustain you?
First of all, I think we have to be honest, about while we're out there trying to do the work of the Lord, right? We have to be honest when we hit that place where we're like, dang, Lord, but I really want companionship though. Like, everybody is getting married. People got kids, they grown. I have none. Like, what, I really have learned to go to the Lord with that. Like, I'll literally pray about it and just talk to him about it until he offers me peace. And he will normally offer me peace by way of directing me through his word. He'll usually bring somebody into my life that'll say something. If I'm chewing on something, I tell Jackie oftentimes this shit could be like, I was just reading a scripture that's like dead on. But he tells us if we seek him, we'll find him. So really, I think a lot of my responses to dealing with it is knowing that I have a God who's real, that loves me and cares for me, that I can go to with anything. So that's my first stop, period. And so, like I said, so it could be days of me being sad, and I'll just be like, man, God, but I'll just keep laying it at his feet until I process through it. And it was so dope because I actually had an instance like that. I was praying about some stuff, and I wasn't even sad, but I was just praying about singleness, recently. And the Lord was like, man, you get me. Like, he just laid this on my heart. You get me. I came and I died and I rose for you. And like, you can marry someone and they could die for you. Preston could die for you, but he can't raise for you, and he can't offer you eternal life. And so a lot of times when I go to the Lord with my longings, my yearnings, my sadness, he comes to me with his truth. You know what I mean? You remember when Jesus was being tempted by Satan, and Jesus kept responding to Satan with the word. It's always going to be the word that restores you, that comforts you, that offers you that insight, that helps to sustain you. But we have to be willing to go to the Lord and not, we have to go to him in that right posture too. Because a lot of times we'll be like, I went to him like, I mean, Lord, I don't understand why you doing this. And blah, blah, blah. Like, you're not going trying to talk. You're not going trying to get help. You know what I mean? We have to really go to him like trying to get help. So I will say, like, man, God, I'm really kind of mad because I feel like I did everything right and it's not going well for me. And I don't think that's cool. So I need you to help me with this. Like, you're God, your word says this, I need you to do. So it'll be a legit conversation. A lot of times I think if we do go to God, maybe our posture is not always right, and so ultimately, y'all, whether the church, the world, Disney movies is trying to make us think that marriage is the end all be all, the Lord told us that we were in a war. The Lord told us that we were going to have to fight. The Lord told us to put on the full armor of God. The Lord told us to seek him and we'd find him. You know what I mean? Like, we have to at some point take ownership for this faith that we've entered into and decide that we are going to live it out. And if we don't know, we're gonna figure it out. You know what I'm saying? And so, and I think, I promise everybody listening that if you do that, God, he will give you so much joy and peace about it. And with that comes so much more wisdom and perspective and a settledness about where you are. You know what I mean? And then you're able to look, and like I said, I'm able to see how I'm so much more effective in my life. Like there's so much that I should be thankful for, but I'm crying over the fact that I'm not married. That's literally one thing. That's literally the garden all over again. He said, y'all can eat from any tree, don't eat from this one. What, they mad and eat from the one. You know what I'm saying? It's like that's just so the enemy. So yeah, I think
what's good?
And then we'll transition.
Yeah, we're gonna transition into Q&A, but I think the thing that I've learned, well, the thing that was the most eye-opening that you said was that I think was so powerful was the piece that you said about like you pouring into Jackie and what that did, and not just Jackie, because it's probably so many other people you poured into that has made impacts in the world that we probably never see, you know.
And even not to cut you off, but I'm gonna forget it. I think even not to neglect God's use of you in your job, you know. Like, let's say you don't have a ministry position. Let's say you're not discipling people. God is using you at your 9 to 5 too, in your college classes too, in a way that's unique and distinct in your singleness. But
and I just thought how powerful it is. I mean, just imagine the things that Jesus probably couldn't get accomplished if he was married. Right. And so
that would have been weird.
That would have been weird. Somebody be married to God in the flesh. But I'm just saying, like, fully human at the same time. And so, like, to think about in all the ways in which, like, God is using you and how He's able to use you in a very distinct way because of your singleness.
Right.
Encourage somebody. And I know that might be hard for people who's single. It's like, yeah, but I still want to get married. But just understanding, like, man, if you're not married at this moment, know that God is intentional behind that. If, you know what I'm saying? And so that was just a new perspective for me. You know what I mean? And so God has used you greatly in your singleness, and He will continue to use you greatly until He, you know, wants to stop using you in that way. You know what I'm saying?
Amen.
Powerful.
Well, glory be. So we're gonna open it up for Q&A.
Q&A time.
If you have a question for us or Santoria, send me a message via Patreon. I will send you a link. The link will bring you into the broadcast. We will add you, and we'll talk to you. You got one question. Preferably make it about the content here. Don't be asking what kind of oil she put on her edges. That's not what this.
Why you like them be headphones? You got on your.
That's not.
You are stupid.
Sierra Johnson, I just sent you a link. Ebony Bradley, I just sent you a link. Caitlin Coleman, I just sent you a link.
Y'all quick.
Who else we got? Brianna Fox, I just sent you a link. All right. We ain't got not a nan man.
They probably on here, but they don't be caring about asking questions about holiness.
Man, not a man, nan man.
They're like, we're outnumbered in the church.
They love it.
And they don't have the same pressure. Like, hey, listen to this. My mom got pregnant with me at 17, right? She's still in high school. She said that was at the time where they had to go up to the church and confess their sin. So she had to go up to the front and confess her sin. And she's pregnant. But she said, but they never made the boys that was getting the girls pregnant come up there.
Whoa.
Ain't that crazy?
Right. Like y'all got pregnant by yourself.
Hello.
Like y'all a bunch of
he can't sing in the choir no more, but he could play on.
You clearly needed some birds for your bees.
That actually makes you really mad and sad. You know what I'm saying? That I think that and that's the reason why a lot of men in the church don't become, well, boys in the church don't become men, because we don't hold them.
So Brooke and Caitlin, I see you. Brianna Fox, I see you. Ebony, I see you. All three of y'all, make sure when y'all get done, send me your address. I'm going to send y'all a book by Sam Alberry called 7 Myths About Singleness. All right. Brooke, you ready? Caitlin, you ready? Let's make this cuter. It ain't cute. All right, who your question for, girl? Okay. Oh, first of all, who we talking to? Who's Brooke? Who's Caitlin?
I'm Brooke.
Hey, Brooke.
I'm Caitlin.
Hey, Caitlin.
Hey, Brooke. How you doing?
Doing great. We just got our water's out. We're up in Texas. We got our
y'all got lights.
Yeah, we got. So,
man.
I really enjoyed this session, and my question I have is, I'm marching to the beat of my own drum. Like, I love my singleness. It's been great. It hasn't always been that way. And I think the biggest thing, like, I relate to a lot of things that she's asked or saying, but my question is, what's the balance in your own mind of you want to be single? Like, I'm not sitting here looking for a man, but what's the balance of saying, okay, well, I do desire companionship and I do desire to be with someone, but not now. So what's the balance of saying, I want to stay single and enjoy my singleness, but do I need to be putting myself in situations? Because the reality is proximity is how you meet people. So do I need to put myself in situations, but I don't even want it right now? Does that make sense?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so I don't know that I necessarily agree with the whole proximity. Like, you got to put yourself out there. Like I said, I know that the Lord knows exactly where I am. My main goal is to make sure, though, that my heart is really open for it. And that was work I had to do to make, like I said, when I was able to discern that I was on this like single woman, the independent woman kick, and the Lord had to break down some stuff to deal with me on that so that my heart would be open. So yeah, like I said, I don't necessarily agree that you have to put yourself out there, because I know that the Lord knows where you live. He knows where you're going. He knows who your friends are. But I would say just being open. So there was a point where if a guy was like, hi, I'd be like, oh my God. And I'd walk away. It was so stupid. It was so stupid and awkward. This is when we were like caught up in some serious legalism in an old church. And then I'm like, saying you can have a conversation with him. That is so weird, right? So then it was fine. Like, he'd be like, hey, what's up? And I'm like, hey, how you doing? But inside, I was like, my heart was pounding, and I'm trying not to be awkward and be natural, because I was no longer accustomed to it. So I'm open to any type of interaction or engagement, as long as I don't discern that, like, oh, this is maybe something I should stay away from. So then that way, if whoever is approaching me and this happens to be the one, I'm not, like I said, being weird or acting funny. But even with that, I feel like God is so faithful that even if you end up acting funny, this dude will continue to pursue you. You know what I'm saying? Like, if it's the one, like, there's a quote, and it's secular, but they say, like, you can't say the wrong thing to the right person. I agree with that, and Preston and his dating life prior to Jackie, women were chasing him consistently. Jackie was the one he ended up chasing. But that's because that's what God set up. You know what I mean? So I would say, as long as you feel like you've committed it really to the Lord, you're being open with him about where you are, and you're like, man, Lord, I'm good right now. Because then I've seen stories of women being like, I'm good right now. I don't need, I'm not looking for anybody. But then the Lord sends them anyway. But again, because you're open to his will, you just change directions. You're like, oh, well, I guess he's here then. You know what I'm saying? Maybe that's where God wanted you, to be content with him so that he could send him, so you wouldn't, take advantage of it, abuse it, idolize it, whatever. But does that answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely. That was a good point. Thank you.
Okay.
Well, thank you, Brooke and Caitlin. Remember to send me a message.
Hi, guys.
Thank you.
Brianna Fox, you ready? Hey, girl.
Hey, what's up? I didn't think I was actually going to be on here, so this is cool.
Thank the Lord. Good. Where you live?
I live in Indianapolis, Indiana.
Oh.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I see. Huh?
We're going to be there in April.
Oh, really? Cool. Maybe, is it open to public, whatever you're doing? Is it like a
Yes, the Gospel Coalition. So it's two conferences: the Gospel Coalition Women's Conference and the General Conference is all in the same week.
Yeah.
Oh,
so
cool. Okay.
I'm doing a general conference, doing a women's conference. So check it out.
Cool. Yeah, I was gonna say, I've never really done anything like this, so this is like my first time being a part of like a Bible study kind of thing. So this is cool. But yeah. Yeah, thank you. So I guess this sort of ties into the person who just asked a question and kind of what you were talking about earlier. I kind of gathered that when you were talking earlier about kind of how to handle conversations with people who are kind of outsiders to you, asking you a bunch of questions about singleness and like, why, why are you single or and all that kind of stuff. But for me, I've never really had issues or like felt offended or annoyed because I'm just like, okay, you don't even know me, and clearly you're just asking me stuff just because you don't have nothing else to ask. But a lot of my struggles have come from intimate relationships and those questions being asked. Because, for instance, in my situation, parents, like they're coming from a place of genuine concern and that they're not trying to be annoying like those people that you mentioned earlier. But for instance, me, like I'm this is why I like you guys a lot, Jackie, because you watch documentaries and my history and stuff. So I'm really into going to museums and doing a lot of things that involve like paying close attention and just really being in my own element, I guess, like going to a museum and just being there all day. And for me, I enjoy doing that by myself. Like I prefer to because, having somebody with you got to worry about, just somebody getting bored and not being interested and all that kind of stuff. Well, for me personally, like my parents or maybe other people in my life that I'm close to, they seem to be more stressed out about me being single than I am. And that stresses me out. Like, I'm not really stressed out about being single. Going back to what the girl was saying just a minute ago, I really feel fine. And like, people don't realize that you're making me anxious by being anxious about it. And it like, sometimes I have a hard time really like channeling through that because it's like, I second guess myself, like, man, should I be more anxious about the fact that I haven't met somebody? Should I feel like bad that I like to go to the museum for 5 hours by myself and I feel cool? Like, you know what I'm saying? It's irritating. And I try to like, I'll wrap it up in a second. With my parents and stuff. And I know this is not godly at all, but it makes me kind of really reserved towards them to where if I do meet somebody, I don't feel comfortable going to them because it's almost like you're going to be this kind of like annoying, like, oh yeah, you finally found somebody. And like, you know what I mean? I know I'm saying a lot, but like just people being more concerned about than you are and that making you anxious.
I would say for me, I would just talk to them about it, to be honest. And I wouldn't do it when they approach me with it. Because a lot of times whatever comes out is going to be bad. But just process really what you feel about it and process your perspective on it, a healthy one. Because a lot of times people don't even realize the angst that they're putting on you, especially your family. They love you, right? So they want what's best for you. Like my mom said to me at one point, she was like, look, just go have a baby and give it to me. I'll take care of it. Like, you didn't raise me like that. What? You know what I'm saying? So yeah. I get it, but I think, legit just kind of think through some of the points about, man, mom and dad, when you come at me about this, like, am I not married? That starts to make me question my worth. It starts to make me question whether or not I'm doing something wrong. It makes me super insecure. And all of a sudden I'm aware of this thing that I actually had peace with. And I don't think you're trying to do that, but that's what you're doing. So could we find a better way? Maybe, if you want me to get married, I do want to get married at some point, pray about it. Please, by all means, do that. But if you could kind of back off a little bit with the comments and, the prodding, because it ultimately, it stresses me out a lot. And I would give them an example. Like if you stayed up all night one night about it, or if you couldn't sleep or you felt you couldn't eat or however it impacted you, I would lay all of that out because it's a real thing. I'm not just saying leave me alone because I don't want to hear it. You're like, man, no, this is just not beneficial to my mental health at all. Right. And I know people don't really see that.
Yeah. That's a good point.
Was that helpful, Brianna?
Yeah, very much so. I think that it's just kind of like me getting more confident in bringing stuff up like that because I'm actually very a vocal person and not really scared to like approach things. But that's a topic I'm very vulnerable about that I have just really kept to myself. Because I'm just like, man, like y'all stressing me out. Like I just want to go to my museum by myself and mind my business. But
do a lot of praying. Do a lot of praying. For
yourself. It's gonna take time, but that helps. Well, thanks.
Thank you, Brianna. Send me your address via Patreon so I can send you a book.
All right, I got you. Bye.
Right, no problem. Ebony, you ready?
Ebony and Ivory.
Got a song?
Hello.
You so
That's
young.
No, I heard it.
Ivory.
I didn't think it had that melody. How you doing, girl?
I make my own melodies.
Okay. Where you live?
Good. I live in Illinois, but I'm in Indiana right now in grad school
Oh, what school?
at Purdue University.
Oh,
Oh,
I said all like I know what I said.
I used to do poetry at Purdue a lot.
Oh, cool. You should go ahead and come back. You know,
But huh?
you should go ahead and just come back. Do it again. You know.
They don't book me no more. I don't know why.
It's COVID, girl. All right, what's your question?
My question is more about past romantic relationships. I feel like that's been my little bit of my struggle. Like, how do you navigate past relationships once you moved on, especially if they're like, you know, old friends or things like that, but you know that like right now they're not at the same spiritual level that you're at, so they don't understand how they're influencing you by being around, or things they say, or bringing up things you've done in the past or things like that. So, because I know we have like this block culture, so it's like you want to block them. But if you blocked everyone who you had different opinions with, then the gospel really wouldn't be shared, right? Because it'd be you and your bubble. So how do you really go through navigating past romantic relationships and making sure that that they're respecting you in your faith and your decisions, but also that you're not giving them too much influence on who you are, to where like they're leading you back into the sin that you already like you are trying to work.
Are you saying past romantic relationships? I'm sorry.
Yes. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, you can't hear me.
I can speak to that, but I'll let Sam go first.
I was gonna say something.
It's just talk.
Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say for me, I don't know. Well, maybe I should ask the women. I don't know if it looks different from for a man than it does for a woman.
Sure it does.
Because for
Everything looks different.
Because for me, I you know, I guess because I'm married to the in that context, I don't feel the need to have relationships with my exes, nor do I feel the need to even follow them on social media.
I mean, but when you were a single man, I'm sure you had relationships that were either a distract, and I know you did. They were either a distraction or just unhelpful, and like just how to navigate those. Because the issue with relationships is we're friends with these people. We love them, but we also friends.
Yeah, I think it's up to us in our singleness to create clear boundaries with the people that we was in relationships with, and making it clear that they have to honor these boundaries for you to even be in a space with me.
That's right.
Because I think, because one, it's an emotional tie there that can get your attention off.
Why you ain't say soul tie?
It's an emotional tie there that can get your off what the Lord has for you. Some other stuff can happen, you know what I'm saying, when you're emotionally vulnerable. The devil can find like a open door and a foothold there. And so for me, when I was single, one of the things I did was like, man, I let it be known publicly, but I also let it be known with the girls that I broke up with or who we broke up. They're like, no, this is my life now. I have a mission now, and I don't want to do anything or put myself in a position that would take me off focus of that. I don't know if that answers the question. I just think clear boundaries is good, especially when you're dealing with people who you was in relationships with, because
especially when boundaries were crossed intimately, that adds a whole other level.
Yeah.
But go ahead, Sam.
Yeah, I think I was actually going to pretty much say what Preston said, and I think it can be a little bit manipulative at times for you to feel that if I cut this person off, it's block culture. It's really protecting yourself. You know what I'm saying? Like, you have to, once you establish those boundaries, don't let anybody make you change that. You know what I mean? Because you're, like you said, you're in a different space. So you can't even expect them to fully understand why you're doing what you're doing. You can't expect that. You know, it's almost like having a kid, right? So they might want some candy for dinner, and you're like, no, you need to eat a well-balanced meal. And then after, you can have some candy. They would just eat candy all day. You know what I mean? But you don't sit and contend with the kid because they're a kid and you know that y'all not on the same level. So I would say likewise, because I've done that too, like I don't want to just be blocking everybody. But girl, if you have to, until you get to a place that you're strong enough to respond like you need to, do it. Because this is really a matter of life and death. This is the one thing that it's worth it for, right? So a lot of the other things you probably did it for weren't even as valuable as this. But my relationship with Jesus, nah, you can't touch that. And when you do that, you draw that hard line, they will know not to try you anymore. Like it'll send a clear message to them too that no, I'm really not playing. I'm really not compromising. Maybe you've always been flexible, or maybe they'll try to bend your ear like, well, you're the only friend I got to really talk to you about all that. Girl, that's trash. Throw it away. I was that friend. Always, you're the only friend I got. You're the only one I can talk to. So I'm constantly putting myself on the line and I'm damaging myself to help you, but you really don't want help. You just want some company in your misery. No, I'm done. Cut it. Cut it. Can I say that?
You want help from me.
Well, praise God. Does that help, Ebony?
It did. Thank you very much, all of you.
No problem. Somebody said because of my comment that we should talk about soul ties. I do think it might be okay to say something quick about them. I'm trying to find it. Can someone? She said, "Ooh, can someone ask about soul ties?" You asked about it.
Yeah, I'll quickly just say that some of y'all might know about my poem Soul Ties that I did years ago. And I still think the poem is biblical. But I think sometimes people can use the word soul ties in an unbiblical way. And so I've heard some people saying your souls are intertwined with one another. And
y'all switching out demons.
And stuff like that. No, but I do think what I talked about in the poem that I did 10 years ago, there is an emotional bond that two people have when they are intimate with one another. And so God has created us to be like holistic people. And so we're not just spiritual, but we're also physical. We're also emotional. And so all of this is who we are. Like he created not just our spirit man, but our physical man. And so and they're intertwined in such a unique type of way. And so we'll be naive to think that you could just lay with somebody and they are not emotionally tied or like not in like a deep spiritual way how people try to put it, but like no. And you always talk about the thing.
It's not a soul tie. It's oxytocin. There's a hormone that is reproduced or that we get when you breastfeed and when you have sex, and the hormone. The connecting hormone. So when you have sex, oxytocin is released in both partners where you feel more close and more connected to that person than you otherwise would. And that's why I think when you add sex on top of emotions, like you feel married to a person that you're not married to, because the sex was to consummate an actual covenant. And so that's why.
You better preach, Jackie.
Yeah. That's great. Yeah, and so to be short, I think sometimes we try to make it way more spiritual, even though it is spiritual in a sense.
We spiritualize science.
We spiritualize science, but our spirit being created our anatomy, our bodies, and created it to respond in a certain way. And so, yeah, you're emotionally tied to that person because God created two people to be emotionally tied. Your spirits are not tied together. Your souls are not tied together. God created our souls to be individual souls, and can't nobody's soul mix with mine.
And the only where in scripture where there is even the language of soul tie is between Jonathan and David. So their friendship was so unique and so close and so intimate, and not in a perverted way as some of these people try to say, but it was just a really close friendship. That is the only evidence that we see of soul ties. But I think this would be a cooler pen to put to this assignment that Sam had me do one time. So as y'all know, I used to be gay. Okay, you know that, right?
You did?
Yeah. I tell you that. I wrote a book about it.
You gotta start telling me stuff like this.
That's crazy. I shouldn't have kept that a secret.
You've been married 7 years. You tell me you used to be gay,
I'm
Bucko?
sorry. I thought I showed you the pictures. Anyway, after I had broke up with,
she's been washed in the blood.
After I broke up with my last girlfriend for Jesus, there was a real grief about like the loss of that relationship. You know what I'm saying? Like I mourned not being with her anymore and not being able to talk to her and all these things. And it just went on for a minute. And I was in the living room and I don't know if I was crying. I just was depressed. I think I missed her. And Sam was like, you know what? I'm tired of talking about this girl. She was like, this is what we're going to do. She said, you're going to get a piece of paper and you're going to write down all the things that she gave you, all the things that you miss about her, all the things that you think you're missing because you don't have her. And I want you to then read the Bible and find all the ways that God is everything that you think you need in her. You don't remember that?
God, no, but that's good.
You like, God, use me.
And so on one part, I got her name and I got comfort. Like she gave me comfort. I miss being comforted. And then that took me to, I think it's 2 Corinthians, that God is the source of all comfort. And I just went down this list. And so what happened is, it wasn't that I stopped missing her, but I stopped having this delusional affection for what I thought she could give me over and above what God already had in himself. And so I think some of the things that we call soul ties are really us trusting our exes to be God for us.
Yeah.
That might be a really helpful practice for some of us to just go to the scriptures, see what it says about God himself, and that might loosen the hold that our exes have.
Now look at you. You were a real thug who loved Jesus because you did that exercise. Thank you, Sam.
No problem.
Sierra, you ready?
Yeah,
Hey,
ma'am.
Sierra.
Hi,
Hi.
I'm good. How are y'all?
We good. Where you at, girl?
Charlotte, North Carolina.
You look familiar.
She's coming to PIA.
I probably do. Oh, y'all remember me? Oh, sorry. Sorry, I had a bit more. So first of all, I love this conversation. I feel like it's doing some healing in me, real talk. But because the grief part is something big. Because for me, even with people in my family or whatever that's single, like my family will come to me all the time. But I mean, I'm only 27. That's not old. But they keep coming to me like, I'm single, I don't have no kids, I never been in a relationship, and I'll point out somebody in the family that is older than me that's single, and they'll be like, well, they have kids. So I'm like, well, dang. So am I not good enough to be anything but a wife and a mother? But on the flip side of that, as far as, do you believe that there is like you can have unrealistic expectations when it comes to men that are approaching you? Because I had some people tell me that I'm looking for, I guess, a finished product, got somebody that has already like got finished. Because I'll compare, without thinking about it, I'll compare certain men that approach me to like my cousin, that's a minister, Preston and Ezekiel. Those are the three people that, because I was like, I want men like y'all. But they're like, those men were.
That's an honor, sis. That's sweet. So,
but people would tell me like, those men are the men that you see right now. The three men that you just named are bad examples because they probably wasn't like that when they first met their wives, because all of y'all are married. So I just want to know, is that like a real unrealistic expectation to put on men to be a certain way, rather than just like, going with the flow? Because I've done that too, and it's just like, okay, no, I don't want y'all. Like,
come on, Sierra.
So you're saying is it a wrong expectation to expect a man to be a certain way when you first meet him?
Yeah.
I think I think yes and no. I say yes because there's some morals and some values that people should just have, not just as a man, but just as a man of God, as a human being, right? As a person who should love God and love people. And so every moral thing falls under that, right? And so he shouldn't just be a good man to a woman because he wants girls to like him, or no, he should just be a good person because he loves God and he has a conviction to love people.
Yeah.
Right. But I think that sometimes I've seen wrong expectations of people wanting a man who is so sanctified that you don't allow him to even go through a process of becoming what God wants him to be.
What you mean?
Yeah.
And so what I mean is, don't look at, I think what somebody told you is right? Because the men that means Ezekiel are year 7, year 13 for him of marriage is not the men we were a year before we were married. Like I wasn't proud of the husband that I was my first year. And God taught me how to be a husband in marriage.
Mm-hmm.
So is it a matter of discerning of who you should like give your time to, as far as like this person just needs grace because they're not there?
I think if you pray for discernment when it comes to a man, you should pray for these two things. You should pray, does he truly love God? And does he truly love people? Whatever I don't see now, he will grow into that if he has the spirit of God, if he loves God, and if he loves people.
Yeah.
Because God, the things that I was not my first year of marriage, best believe God convicted me of those things, and I grew into those things. You know what I'm saying? And so I think one, you just have to give a man time to grow. But if he don't love people,
I had two things.
I got one.
Because this is good. This is to build upon on your point. When I was friends with Preston wasn't perfect. Preston still isn't perfect. But one of the things that struck me about Preston was his humility and his teachable nature.
Yes.
His brokenness over sin. And so by his humility is he was very honest about his struggles. He was very honest with other people. Like he wasn't a deceiver. He wasn't sincere. He was very genuine. But also he was really teachable. And by teachable, he was underneath somebody. He submitted to the authority of his leader.
That's big.
He was being discipled by somebody. And his friendships told me a lot about who he is, because who a man is friends with really does identify some things that he likes, that he enjoys, how he thinks. But he also had brokenness over sin. I remember when he fell into a situation before we got together and we were friends, and he called me and apologized to me for falling in fornication. We just friends. You know what I'm saying? And he's crying and broken that he dishonored the Lord.
Yeah, tell me I was crying.
But
you was crying thug, kid.
I'm still a thug, though.
Those are some really practical ways to identify a man's godliness. If a man is humble and a man is teachable and a man doesn't love sin, he's gonna grow. Period.
Can I just? I'm sorry. Let me just piggyback real quick off what you just said, because that's something that I didn't say that's super big. Know that if a man is teachable now, that's such a great sign. Because don't just look at him. Look at how willing he is to allow other men to pour into his life. Because if you marry a man, it's going to be the men who he respects, who he allows to pour into his life, that's going to help your marriage a big deal. Because I wouldn't have grown in my marriage if I didn't have men of God who was married to correct me, I can look to glean from, to get inspiration from. And so what you just said was really big. And so pay attention. Pay attention.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
And then I would say, to add to that, so you're getting a nice little stew of advice. So I think too, if you're close to your cousin, I would talk to him, because going back to what I said earlier in the conversation about my discussion with Omar, I was like, man, do I need to change? Am I tripping? Am I this? And it was him that helped me see, like, nah, Sam, you right where you should be. You know what I'm saying? And so if you have a good relationship with your cousin and he knows you, you know what I mean? He knows you well enough to kind of speak to the person that you are, lay out like what it is that you're thinking, and pick his brain about those things. And that'll help kind of balance you out too. Because I know that did for me. I was willing to just throw all kind of stuff in the trash. He was like, no, wait, that's good. You know? And so I knew I was on the right path. And then from there, all the stuff they said too is awesome. So I think when you said discernment, I think that's part of it too. So discerning as you go, like you're observing, like Jackie said, you're observing his friends. How does he interact with them? How does he respond when he sins? You know, how does he respond to God's word? Does it excite him? Does he really want to learn and grow? Like all of those things.
Can I say one more thing?
Sure.
Okay. Just to that, how can you encourage somebody to continue going in that when it gets discouraging? Because it seems like even when discerning or whatever, you see all these different men, it's like, whoa, like are all of these men trash? Like the people that are like my cousins, they're extinct. So it's like, how do I like keep faith in the fact that there's still men out there. I guess that's what I'm saying.
Sovereignty.
Yeah, because God is good and He gives good and perfect gifts.
Yeah.
So it is so. It doesn't even matter. You know what I'm saying? Like, it doesn't even matter what you're seeing. What faith is the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things not seen. We're trusting in the Lord. And so we have to keep just redirecting what our confidence is in. And I feel like most of the most beautiful testimonies come out of it looked a hot mess, but God, right? And you're like, dang, I had the audacity to believe. So that's what's kept me 45 years, girl. You are good. You hear me? You're good. Whenever you get discouraged, you're like, that girl 45 and she was still laughing. Hey.
All right, Sierra. Good question.
Thank you.
Talking to you. I think it would be valuable to us to answer this question that I think is in light of Sierra's question, which is by miracle, could y'all speak on giving someone room to grow versus settling?
Oh, that's excellent.
That's a really good question.
That's an excellent question.
What question? What y'all say?
Oh man, I think you can.
It look like I'm taller than you right now.
No.
I did a better posture.
Yeah.
That's all.
I think we settle for people. I think it's hard to settle for somebody who is trying to be better. I think sometimes we settle for people, for the women who have been in relationships. And all the men, all the people in their life saying this dude is trash, or even vice versa, the men, all the women's like, man, she don't have your best interests in hand, and you're hoping that God will change their heart about who they are. I think you're settling, but I think giving somebody room to grow is actually like when they're actually growing.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like people, like when we say grow, we're not saying give them time to start growing.
Right.
It's somebody growing, and so it's somebody growing into the man. Like, because sometimes people don't like that process, but if they're growing, like that's sanctification, and so not speeding up someone's sanctification process can be you hindering their growth, right? But I think you can settle when you are choosing to stick with somebody who's not showing you any interest in growing because you think God is going to change their heart, or you think God is going to like make them. Yeah, I hope that makes sense.
I have heard testimony after testimony after testimony after testimony of women who entered into marriages or in relationships, and there were always red flags. And
yes, Jesus.
Always. If you got the Holy Ghost and you got good friends, you're gonna know when you're settling. Like there's this like, I can't, like, he's not right. What happens is you just love the Negro.
But also,
or the Anglo-Saxon.
To my brother's defense, a lot of dudes be settling.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, she got a big butt.
No. Yeah. For looks. For looks. Because here's the thing, like a woman's immaturity is not easily, in my opinion, it's not as noticeable as a lot of men.
I can see that.
Because I think
that's fair.
I think because most women are ready for marriage, and because they're ready for marriage, they're mature in a lot of Christians' eyes. And I said this the other day on our live, like the level, like we look for maturity at, when a man is like ready to get married. That's his sign of maturity. But it's like a lot of we disciple some dudes back home in Chicago. It's like you with some very immature women who's making your life hard.
Yeah. And that's what I was gonna say. That's
making your life hard. You know what I'm saying?
Says little piece. I feel like you will know the difference between if they're growing and if you're settling, if they are taking away from you versus adding to you.
Mm-hmm.
If they're growing, it's gonna add to you, and it's gonna make you better, and it's gonna count. It's gonna be a good thing. If you settling, they stressing you out, they overwhelming you, you're anxious. Man, and just because I have been there, it's like, oh, I get it now. You don't want to, you want to be where you at. I'm trying to grow. You saying you're trying to grow, but this stress, this toxicity that it's introducing into the relationship says otherwise. So, oh, that's my bad. Yeah, that's huge. Man, just run, girl. Don't believe it. I don't care what they saying.
She said, Santoria, I took off my hair wrap at this point because child. Yes, ma'am, says Sarah.
I'm telling you. That's a personal testimony right there.
That was a word. You ready, Olivia? Olivia prays, and let's bring her on while in the middle of her praise. Hey, girl.
Hi.
How you doing? I'm here for this back.
So good. I am loving this conversation.
It would be hard to be depressed in that room. My God.
Can you tell I like yellow?
I can tell. Yellow and incense. That's what it looked like to me. Where you live?
Where do I live? I live in Elizabethtown, Kentucky. I'm in Bowling Green, Kentucky, because I'm going to Western. But
that sounds fun. Y'all got power? Y'all didn't get hit by all the secrets and things.
No, we got some snow, some snow, some sleet, but we're making it. We still got power. Praise Jesus.
Right, man. So what's your question, Olivia?
So my question is kind of, especially in the culture today when we're so focused on finding our other half, which is not going to be found except through Jesus. But anyways, when we're so focused on that, a lot of times it can be high on people's radars to like find a relationship, find that person. So like any male that will come into my life, I'm like, possibly. So and that can be very distracting from like your relationship with the Lord and stuff. So I guess how do you like balance like going like focusing on the Lord but also having that deep desire in your heart to have that companion?
I would say start it with going back to go to Jesus, right? Because he's the source of, like Jake said, all comfort. He knows all things. He knows the beginning from the end. I would first go to him and be like, man, God, I'm on this hamster wheel of a situation. And I would talk to him about it until I felt like he gave me a peace and a resolve about it and trust that he will. You know what I'm saying? Like Jackie said with the list that she did, I feel like we can say that we believe, that we trust God to be the source of everything, that we trust him to be Father, that we trust him to be the lover and keeper of our soul. But sometimes there's something in there that maybe we're not fully convinced. So we're not putting our confidence in him the way that we should. And so I would say there's probably some unbelief in there or some lie you believe, like God's going to take care of everybody else, but not me. So I got to keep my eyes open just in case. You know what I'm saying? Like, so I would really just continue to go to him and dig into that. And I might even read through the book. I don't know if you ever heard of Lies Women Believe and the Truth That Sets Them Free. It's a book that, Jackie, did I ever have you read that? Yeah, it's a bomb book by this author, Nancy Lee DeMoss Wolgamuth now. And she just addresses a lot of things that we are almost like trained to believe as women from, as kids. And it's ingrained in us. And we don't, until you read the lie, you're like, oh my gosh, I didn't know I believed that. But then she'll give you like the scripture to combat that. And she'll tell you what the truth of Jesus is. It's extremely liberating. But I would say definitely pray about it and continue to pray and praise God that you recognize that that's what you're doing. Because that's the first part of it, right? Just being like, man, I think I'm kind of tripping. I'm a little hyper aware. I need to stop that. That's awesome. That's good.
Great.
That would be
Thank
you. Jack, you got anything?
No, that was it. That was good, Olivia. I hope that was helpful.
Yes, it was. Thank you so much.
You're really patient.
Thank you, Olivia.
Sister Sand, the saints want to know, how can they connect with you? Your page is private.
It is. So you guys, I did an Instagram live with Jackie and Hill Paris like 3 months ago now.
Mm-hmm.
And I have like 400 plus friend requests that I have yet to accept.
Sam ain't messing with y'all.
So, but I will open it up. So if you guys are on here, because I'm gonna try to get more active. Jackie's kind of, I can't even say what you've done. She's done some type of voodoo on me, and maybe some Jesus voodoo though.
I just
you what?
all I did was pray. The Lord here.
The Lord.
He apparently be hearing her a lot because this is something I didn't want to do. So Jackie has been praying against me, I guess, and here I am. But anyways, if she posts my Instagram, and you guys look to be added there, I will add you. I'm gonna go through and add everybody. And,
nice. Let me find you.
Right.
Cause she been like,
I can't believe it. No thanks. Don't want you people. Leave me alone.
I know.
There we go. Santos B 75.
So it's 195, 6 people in here. I want her to get 196 followers tonight.
Listen, everybody's like, yeah, she was aight.
Got people repenting now. It's sackcloth and ashes. Well, we thank you, Stan, for joining us on tonight. I think it was edifying for me. You know what I'm saying? Just because I think the many of the principles that you spoke to apply to just all people. Trust God, read the Bible, let it renew your mind. You know what I'm saying? Like in community, like those are all just Christian things. And so we appreciate you. Everybody say thank you, San. Everybody, come on.
Thanks everybody for hanging with us.
All right, San. We're gonna close you out when I give the last closing remarks, and then I'm gonna text you on a GIF to tell you how much I appreciated it.
Okay.
All right. All right, Saints. I hope y'all enjoyed that. I enjoyed it. Did you enjoy it?
It was dope diggity.
I thought it was dope diggity.
Yeah, man.
Where do you get these things? All right. So next week is our last, I guess, what do you call this? Segment? Yes. Our last segment of the relationship series. And we will be talking to a couple who has been married for 50 years?
Yeah.
And so
they're like literally 2 of my favorite people.
Like, because I mean, people, they want to talk about marriage, and like you have people that want to book us for marriage. It's like we've been married 7 years. Who we need to talk to are these people that have been married for decades.
Yes.
Who've been married longer than they've been single.
Yes.
That's who we want wisdom from.
We want to talk to people who like saw like Nixon on TV when he was like 20.
Anywho, so
and the guy who's coming on, he's like a giant in the faith, in my opinion. I think that he's great.
For sure. So we're just going to talk about marriage and how to make it last. How do we actually stick to the covenant of till death do us part? And I think it takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of community. It takes a lot of commitment. And I think what better couple to learn from than those who actually are doing that. And so join us next week for that. In the in between time, we pray that y'all have a great Wednesday night. See you soon.
Peace up. Chi-Town Sideways. You already know what it is.